This is episode number 84 of the Homeowner Show. Whether you're DIY or looking to hire, we're here to help you find the best information and options for you and your home. My name is Kevin Hackett, and here with me is Craig Williams.
Hello, and welcome to the Homeowner Show. This is Craig, and we are practicing social distancing here on the Homeowner Show.
To the best of our ability.
That's right.
We're not in the same place tonight,
as you can tell. So it's going to be a little bit different of an experience for everybody, but we hope everybody out there is staying safe, following the rules, not getting arrested for any COVID-19 parties or anything like that. So because that would be bad. Not just because you got arrested.
Yeah. But, it's one of those deals. Like, this is not ideal for us. This whole situation is not ideal for anybody. We definitely would like to be all together and doing this differently. But there's a lot of things we'd like to be doing differently. But you know what I want? I want more than anything for this to go away quicker. And if that means staying away from people for a few minutes, I'm fine with that.
I've been advocating staying away from Kevin for many years now.
You've not been very good at it.
Well, do what I say, not what I do. Come on, people.
Oh, exactly. But I tell you what, man, like it's kind of interesting because I'm working from home. I'm taking care of my kids. My wife's working full time still from home, and at the same time, I'm trying to figure out how to work in some projects. Right? I mean, yeah. I feel like that's one of the things that lots of people are trying to do right now, and so. The other day, man, it's kind of weird. So I've got gutters on my house, and the ones in front of the front door are just kind of useless because they had pulled off from the fascia board, and they were separated, so the water was literally coming off the roof in between the gutters and just down, like a waterfall. No. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to get up there and I'm going to tackle this project. And so how hard could it be, right? I just got to attach some screws and all that. So, I had to move some brackets over. If you've ever looked at gutters, they're kind of attached with brackets. And so I was going to move them over because they were stripped out of the fascia board. So I get up there, I take the little gutter guard off, and Craig, this won't surprise you, but there were plants growing in them.
Yep.
I mean, legit plants growing in my gutter. There was 2 inches of dirt and mud. And here's the thing though, this was not horrible mud. It was like topsoil that you would buy at the store.
Heck yeah, man. It's good stuff up in there.
Yes. I was like, what is happening right here? Because I took that stuff and I filled in some holes, and I'm already seeing results. but it took a while. I'm not completely done. I'm gonna have to do it with every single one of my gutters, but I got them reattached. I got them cleaned out. And tonight it rained a little bit, and that thing was working like a champ.
There you go. So did you so earlier this week, Kevin started sending me some pictures, and so I'm curious if you ended up dealing with the family of squirrels.
No. I should have, though. Here's the problem. I've got my ammo is it's too big of a caliber. I need a little bitty BB gun to deal with this. So here's what happens. So I've got this pillar on my house that holds up kind of this little false roof. And I look out my window and I see a squirrel. I sent this picture to Craig. There's a squirrel just poking up out of the pillar. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, he's just sitting there hanging out. I'm like, he's not doing anything. This guy is squatting in my pillar. And so I just watch him for 5 minutes and he doesn't even move. All of a sudden, another head pops up. And I'm like, oh, great. Now we got little baby squirrels hanging out in this thing.
It's been colonized.
Oh, my goodness. And so I, of course, who do I call? I call Craig, the person who can deal with these type of vermin. And I said, what do I do? What do I do to get rid of this? And he sent me back a listing for a BB gun. And honestly, it's a pretty cheap fix.
Yeah, I mean, they're only like $25. I mean, like,
exactly,
and effective.
Sure. But I honestly, I haven't seen them since then. I haven't really been looking, but this whole 2-day Amazon Prime thing has turned into like a week. So I'm just not, I haven't done anything yet.
It's weird. Some stuff is still 2 days and some stuff isn't. I mean, like
Yeah, well, what I've noticed is anything from like a third party tends to take a little bit longer. The stuff that they have in their warehouse that's like Amazon stuff, as long as they've got it in stock, that stuff tends to arrive a little bit quicker.
Yeah. So I got to tell you, man, I'm starting to get some quarantine envy.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Like I actually.
Okay, talk to me.
Like I haven't been home.
Oh man. Yeah, you've been working a lot.
It's been insane. It's been absolutely insane. And I think I mentioned this before. I think it's just everyone is at home now, and they're noticing stuff, and then they also realize that they can't really go to the store to get the stuff that they need to deal with it if they want to do it themselves. So they just call us, and they have not stopped calling.
Well, I mean, I guess it's good for business.
It's a good thing, but like I don't like. I mean, like because of everything that's going on, we've had to take extra precautions for our guys, and so like everybody's got to be masked up and gloved up and covered up, and it's just not, you don't want to be the one out spreading stuff around. So.
No, definitely not. And kind of to your point, like what's interesting is, I'm still working from home. My wife's working from home. We got both of our kids, and I'll be honest, like we've got some friends who are like, I'm bored. I'm like, bored? What are you doing all day? Like, I guess your kids are more self-sufficient. I mean, mine are still pretty young, obviously, but like I don't have any time in the day. I am still very, very busy. And I'm even home. And you're not even home, but like, no. I don't know, some of us are still pretty busy. Yeah.
It's just a different, I mean, like hopefully it's not the new normal, right? I mean, but,
I hope not.
I mean, I'll take the busy part as the new normal, but like even, and so here's the other side of that is when I go to people's houses now, I think a lot of them are really trying to behave themselves and stay at home. And so, but when I come to the door and I'm all masked up and gloved up, they take that as I'm now a safe person to like engage. And like I had this one lady today. I mean, like even though like I'm gloved up, I'm masked up, all this, I want to keep my 6 feet distancing from people. And and I had this one lady today that like would not give me any personal space and kept touching me. And I don't mind that usually, but it's like, lady, like we're in a pandemic. Like, stop touching me.
Right.
Who else have you touched? Get away.
No touchy.
So, and like, but like, it's a customer. And so you don't want to be rude, but at the same time, it's like I'm backing up every time she's touching me. Like she just keeps stepping in and touching me again. I'm like, oh, come on.
So she listens to the show. Here's what we need you to know right now. Like, we love you, but just
don't touch
back
me.
Away. Yeah, back away.
So anyway, we in light of everything that's been going on, I've had 2 friends now that have in the midst of everything that's been going on been the victims of burglary.
Are you kidding me?
No, man, it's bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. And so when we had the opportunity to have this guest on tonight, I thought it was really an opportune moment to kind of discuss some of this stuff, because as things progress with this, this situation that we're dealing with COVID-19, people are going to get weird, And
well, we see it all the time in different things. Like when there's hurricanes and tragedies like this, like people take advantage of the situation.
Right. So anyway, I reached out to my buddy Matt and asked if he could come on the show and talk about some of the things that they do. Matt, why don't you introduce yourself and let everybody know what you do?
Hey everybody, hey Craig and Kevin, great to be on with you guys tonight. Really appreciate you having me on the show.
We're glad to have you, man. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. You don't mind if you hear the kids being a little crazy in the background in the other room, with all this social distancing and working from home. So much you can get away from the kids being crazy.
Children do not believe in social distancing.
Exactly. They're the complete opposite. But yeah, so just to kind of let folks know who I am. So I'm a security consultant with Hawk Security. It's a residential and commercial security alarm company that's been protecting homes and businesses in Texas for about the last 40 years. And then kind of on top of that, some of my experience before that was a number of years in serving in the Army, and specifically as a counterintelligence agent, where I did a lot of vulnerability and threat assessments for government buildings and properties. So I've had a lot of experience when it comes to the threat of somebody penetrating, your home, business, or facility that shouldn't be.
Awesome. Wow. So just a little bit of experience.
A little bit.
Probably things that we don't nearly have enough time to hear stories about.
Oh, trust me, I could go on all night.
I bet.
Yeah, and so Matt, you and I actually have a mutual friend that this happened to recently, where like he had some equipment in a storage facility that that either this person specifically targeted him or they targeted the facility. Either way, they walked off with his livelihood.
Right.
And man, it's so weird to think about people just being like the absolute worst human being in a situation like this, right? Where like things are going to be hard on everybody, and now they're trying to take advantage by actually stealing from people and
Mm-hmm.
disrupting their businesses and their livelihoods. And
exactly, and that's definitely something that you always see. I mean, y'all mentioned it a few moments ago that we've seen kind of this activity. When hurricanes hit, all the looting and rioting that we saw during Katrina, and other recent weather events that caused states of emergency and states of alert in different areas, and only this time we're seeing it everywhere. Nowhere is immune to it. It's not just centralized to one city or one area. So it's a lot more widespread. And I mean, I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news or doom and gloom kind of guy, but at this point, it's only going to get worse before it starts getting better, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, the projections right now are through June or July that we're going to be dealing with this still.
Right.
And those are like.
Exactly.
Some of those are, some people are even saying like those are optimistic, objectives. Probably.
I was even reading a study or something that was put out by a couple of academic professors the other day, where they were basically saying, this period of social distancing and quarantine is great, but even once it's over, unless we have a viable vaccine or a cure or something that can really hamper it down, once we in this period of social distancing and quarantine, we're just going to see, the whole COVID situation break out, once again. So really, all that we're doing now, we're kind of delaying it long enough to where we can ensure that, hospitals and medical facilities have, enough increased capacity to be able to deal with it when that happens.
Yeah. And I mean, I would imagine, at some point, it's not just going to be an issue of, hospitals being overwhelmed, which is obviously like the main concern right now is, keeping hospitals, not near capacity is what we're wanting, so that, we have enough physicians and nurses and medical care people to take care of these people. But I imagine at some point we're probably going to be having the discussion of, are our police stretched too thin to handle what's going on because of instances like what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I've seen reports out of New York where they're getting hit pretty hard, where New York Police Department, is a police department of, thousands and thousands of police officers. But they're already, showing reports and numbers of, easily over, I think it was around 1,000 or 2,000 officers who were, being quarantined because they've been tested positive for corona.
Oh man, I hadn't even thought about it that. I mean, like that's obviously going to be a problem too, because they're going to be out there and exposed.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we think about, all of our first responders and our medical professionals that are out there on the front line, and got to keep in mind that, they're just as susceptible as catching it as the rest of us. But, when they go down with it, then, they're taken off of that front line. So it puts a heavier burden on those that are, still out there, still doing the job. So it spreads everybody kind of thin.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so with all of that cheery news, what can the typical homeowner do to start preparing to have their home a little bit better protected? So maybe walk us through like some of the most vulnerable points of the home, and then some things that they can begin to do to shore those areas up.
So when it comes to home security and trying to avoid being the victim of a burglary or break-in, I kind of take the same approach to it as I did with a lot of the stuff I've been protecting government buildings and military facilities on the government side, is that you have to establish multiple layers of security, and you got to make sure that you harden yourself enough, and so that whenever somebody is looking to victimize you, that you make yourself less of a attractive target than the person next to you. So, for example, just having that sign that you have a security system out in your yard makes you vastly less likely to get broken into. There's 5 houses on your block that have an alarm sign out there, and 2 houses that don't. Which houses do you think are going to get that's the burglars are going to target and wind up breaking into?
Well, isn't it possible to get fake signs and just I say fake, they could be legit signs and you put it in your yard? Would that be helpful?
So a little bit, kind of yes and no. When it comes to, I wouldn't go as far as to get fake signs or, just, a generic looking sign. The people that are out there breaking into homes, they've done it enough that they know what a legitimate sign looks like versus a non-legitimate sign.
Sure.
And then on top of that, having, a newer sign in your yard, or one that, isn't broken or isn't old and faded. A lot of these are signs to, would-be burglar that, perhaps the previous homeowner had that security system and they had it monitored, but when they moved, they moved that monitoring with them and they just left the sign behind so that they could get a new one that's a new house. So that could portray to them that while there might be a system in the house, maybe nobody's monitoring it, because if, a company came through and reactivated the system for that new homeowner, they would have replaced that sign with a newer one out there. And then on top of that, you also got to consider some companies don't really stay in the security game for very long. For example, AT&T was doing security and bundling it with their other services, sort of like Reliant and 7-Link and some of the other companies are doing, and they branded it AT&T Digital Life. Well, I'd say that the majority of the states now, Texas is soon to become one of them, AT&T Digital Life no longer exists. They're not providing that service anymore. So if you still have that sign out there, and that would-be burglar knows that they're not providing that service in the state anymore, then it's almost acting against you. That, hey, there's a system in this house, but nobody's watching over it. So it can kind of go both ways.
Okay, well that makes a lot of sense. So I guess if you're just going to do something shady like that, be smart, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or just go steal it from the yard that actually has one.
Well, we just talked about stealing, Craig.
It's petty theft. It's okay.
But I mean, when we look back over, some of the FBI crime statistics, specifically talking about signs, They reported that 83% of burglars, and this came from interviewing people that were caught and arrested and interviewed later on. 83% of them specifically said that they looked to see if there was an alarm or if there was a sign out front, and that 60% of them would change their mind, if there was even a sign in the yard. So even something as having that sign out there or those stickers on your window, from that security company, can serve as a pretty strong deterrent.
Yeah, and speaking of deterrence, I actually saw when a lot of people were commenting about our friend today who, was victimized. You'd mentioned something about because of what's going on in the country, some crimes are actually coming down with like harsher penalties or categorized differently because of what's going on right now.
So it's kind of weird what we're seeing in that. High-profile crimes like burglary and some instances of theft. A lot of states and counties and other areas, especially here in Harris and Montgomery County, they've declared that since we're in a state of crisis or a state of emergency, that any felony is going to be automatically enhanced. So say this person gets caught that stole our friend's equipment. If normally they would be looking at, say, a third-degree felony for, grand theft and larceny for, the dollar amount of stuff that they took, since they did it during this time of crisis, they're going to be now looking at, a second-degree felony. It's going to bump the seriousness of the charge up. Whereas on kind of the other edge of the sword, we're seeing in a lot of places like California, and other areas where they're actually, I'm not going to say decriminalizing, but they pretty much put out and told the criminals that if you're stealing less than $900 worth of stuff, that we're not going to come after you.
Yeah, I saw a story like that where like people heard about that and then they just started walking out of stores with stuff that was less than $900 and going, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There was a video online that circulated pretty well of two folks with duffel bags and what looked to be like a CVS or a Walgreens and just scooping stuff into the bag and just walking right out. So stuff like that happens. Yeah, right. That only kind of emboldens them a little bit more.
Probably whoever listens to our show from California is probably fine, though, most likely.
Or they just need to leave. It's good grief.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, it's like I want to bring awareness to like this escalation of penalties. Not that we want anybody listening to our show that would consider burglary, but maybe if you're thinking about jumping into that profession, now would not be a good time to do that in Texas.
Right. Not the best.
California, you'd be fine. Go steal all you want, apparently. No. What else in the home, man? I mean, we kind of got started with signs. What else we got?
So I mean, just the presence of the system in itself, cameras outside. If your contacts are pretty easily seen through your window, stuff like that. There are other signs that there's a system in the house. Kind of going back to some of those FBI statistics that only about 17% of burglaries in homes occurred in homes with security systems. So about the vast majority of crimes happened in homes that didn't have a security system. But to touch on some things, not just security system specific and security system related. There's tons of other things that people can do to make their house less appealing. Making sure that they don't have overgrown brushes. Structures that can provide cover, for somebody kind of, trying to sneak around. Using, higher grade locks on all of your doors. There's a lot that I see out there, especially with new built homes and older homes where they've got those, quick set locks. And I just kind of cringe because I spent a couple of years as a locksmith. Whenever somebody would call me out to get into a home where they'd lock themselves out, if there was a quick set lock, I was thanking my lucky stars because it would take me about 5 seconds to get through that lock. Or a higher grade Schlage, 5 or 6 pin lock, that's when I'd be kind of sweating a little bit, wondering how many picks I was going to break that day. And that just kind of goes back to, some of those statistics as well that, about 95% of home burglaries, require some type of forced entry because most people are pretty good about leaving their doors locked, leaving their windows locked and everything else. So if someone's going to get in your house, they're either going to pick the lock, break the window, or kick through the door.
Mm-hmm.
So
I got a question about that. What you're talking about forced entry. Let's talk about that for just a minute.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that people can do to prevent forced entry? Because I've heard a couple of things, not done anything about it, but are there some things that people can do to help that problem?
Definitely. There's a number of things that you can do to kind of harden your doors. When it comes to your windows, I mean, breaking a window is breaking a window. There's not really a whole lot you can do to prevent that.
Sure.
But when it comes to your doors, if you have either a metal door or one that has is solid core of wood, instead of some of these doors where it's just kind of like styrofoam, in the core of the door, that can make it a lot more secure. Pairing it up with that beefy, more heavy deadbolt is a pretty good measure. You can put in the heavy duty strike plate with screws that go deep into the frame. A lot of people, and I'd even challenge you guys to go check this at some point. Take a couple of the screws out of the hinges of holding your door to the door frame. A lot of people don't realize that most builders, we can't fault the builder, but they're looking for the cheapest option possible with something when they're building a home. So in 95% of homes that I ever go to, when I take one of those screws out, it's a little 1, maybe 1.5 inch screw. That's not going to really give you a lot of protection for that door, if somebody's looking to kick it in. So
yeah, that's exactly the thing that I was referring to. Someone told me, hey, take those things out and put a 4-inch screw in the door.
Yep, exactly. I mean, it's one of those things where, going down to Home Depot and $4 later, and your door is a lot more, secure from, getting kicked in. Just for the simple fact that you've got those, longer screws that are sliding, deeper into that door frame. So it's going to take a lot more force, to pry them out if somebody's trying to kick the door in.
Sure. Okay. Sorry to derail. If you can remember where you were, keep talking.
As far as hardening the home?
Yes.
Okay. So as far as hardening the home, some other, small things. Make sure that you keep the entryway and the porch locked. If you've got one of those, an outer kind of entryway to the porch, make sure that outer screen door is locked as well as the inside door. Because if they can't get into that, then, it could turn them to head on to the next house. If you've got one of those, big sliding, window kind of sliding doors in the back or something, get you a wooden dowel or some kind of a board that you can stick down into that sliding track. That way, if somebody opens it from, is able to kind of jimmy that lock open and try to open it, then, that wooden board or something is going to stop that from going along that track. So you can kind of secure it a little bit more that way. If you're going to keep your windows open, make sure it's not more than 4 inches. If you're just, if you're going to leave a window open, just kind of crack it a little bit. Some of the newer windows these days will have kind of an automatic catch in the window to where you open just a couple of inches and then it kind of locks again with those little latches that go into the window frames.
Oh yeah, I've seen those.
Kind of another good option. But all in all, it's multiple things that you can do, to make your house more of a hardened target, more of a less desirable target, so that if I come up to your house and I'm going to break in, and I see a nice Schlage lock there on the door, all the windows are closed, and I do one of them and they're locked, and I see a little contact on that window, I'm going to go check out your neighbor's house as opposed to continuing to skulk around your house. Because a lot of times, we like to tell people the majority of break-ins happen between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. when people are gone at work. But, what's going to happen now that a lot of people aren't gone at work. A lot of people are home. Well, it's, the criminals aren't, quarantining and staying home and teleworking like we are. They're still going to be out, doing what they do. Only now somebody's, more likely to be home, which in a lot of instances we've seen is not going to stop them. They're still going to break into the home.
So is the presence of technology, and there's obviously a multitude of things that can encompass, is that any sort of deterrent in this regard? And I'm thinking like Ring doorbells, electronic locks, different things like that.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of DIY kind of options out there. Like you kind of mentioned the Ring doorbell.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I kind of caution people about some of those DIY options is that the thing that a lot of people don't consider is if you can buy something at the store, I can just go to Amazon and order a Ring doorbell or an Amazon camera. None of those companies are held to any standard of regulation as far as the encryption of those devices.
Okay.
So you could go online right now and Google, Ring devices getting hacked, and you can see that there's actually a big, class action lawsuit that a number of people brought against Ring because their Ring cameras were getting hacked because they didn't have that level of encryption. So if you are going to go with something like cameras or more of the technical stuff, then I always advise people get it through a security company, because with security companies, we have to be licensed and regulated by the state. And we have a certain standard that all of our equipment has to live up to. And that includes the level of encryption on our cameras, our contacts, our P panel, everything else that's involved with what we put into a home, as opposed to where you can just go to the store and get yourself.
That's really good information, because we've even done a show on the Ring doorbell specifically, and there's so many pluses about having a device like that. But I guess the thing that we want to also caution people, and you really kind of mentioned it, is just because we talk about it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right device for you, and you still need to do your research on knowing kind of what's going on. But I think it's just important for us to realize, that there's all kinds of stuff that gets hacked. You probably have heard about, baby monitors getting hacked, and like people from other countries talking to your child in the middle of the night, which is just creepy as everything.
It's pretty scary.
I guess it depends on what language you want them to learn.
Right.
But yeah, that's really good information. So are you telling me that home security companies have devices similar to Ring then?
Oh yeah, definitely. So pretty much anything that you can get out there that's DIY, all of your security companies are going to carry similar equipment, only it's higher grade and higher encryption. So your Ring doorbell that you have on your house, if you have me come out and put in, a Hawk security system, we're going to put, a higher grade Skybell doorbell camera to replace that Ring. And same goes with cameras. We do outside cameras, we do indoor cameras, we'll do everything all the way up to the level of hardwired CCTV if that's, really the route that you want to go. But the thing I always tell people about cameras and other devices like that is that, it's great to have it. It can be a deterrent, because that thief is going to think that, after they've broken in or after they've done whatever they're going to do, whether it's just, stealing your Amazon box off your porch, that you're going to have their picture. But if it's something to the extent of breaking into your home and, invading your home, then not only are we going to have pictures of who did it, but at the same time, if you have a monitored solution, then you know that there's that backup of somebody's going to call and start sending the authorities out to help you if something's going on. So there's nobody monitoring, those cameras or those high-tech devices. Let's be honest. Do you have a Ring doorbell? I
do. Yeah.
Okay. So, you get the notification every time, it senses, cat crosses by it or a car or, anytime anything sets it off. So
exactly.
How long have you had your Ring doorbell?
Almost 2 years now.
Almost 2 years. So every time that notification pops up, if you're busy, you're out working, or you're doing something, you always stop and check that notification and see what your Ring doorbell was picking up, or you just occasionally, if you're busy or doing something else, slide it off to the side.
Yeah, I did it at first for like the first 2 months, and then I turned the sensitivity of it way down.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's what you find with a lot of people and these DIY devices is that while they're great, there's nobody behind it monitoring it for you while you're busy swiping those notifications after a while because you just become numb to it. Mm-hmm. Then all of those devices are essentially what we like to call expensive baby monitors. Yeah. So they're just going to show you who stole your stuff after they stole it. None of it's going to alert the authorities and get them on their way while that crime is being committed.
Mm. Well, I tell you,
because I feel like whenever, like, let's take the Ring for example. If someone's sitting there about to steal your package, I feel like if you talk through that thing and say, "Hey, man, put it down," like they're just gonna laugh at you probably because they know nobody's home.
It's kind of a gamble, really. I was watching a video earlier today online where a lady had posted her doorbell camera footage where she had 4 good-sized boxes on a bench on her porch, and she gets notified because somebody pulled up in the driveway and came up close enough to the camera to set it off, and this lady had started taking these boxes and putting them into her car, and so she starts talking to her over the doorbell like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And the lady tries to, pawn it off as she's at the wrong address and everything else, trying to make it seem kind of innocent. But, while she's, sitting there telling her, "Hey, put my stuff back," she goes back and gets the boxes out of the car, puts them back, and then drives off and leaves. Even, pretends to get on the phone with this, supposed person whose house she thought she was at. But it served as enough of a deterrent that, hey, I'm here watching you steal my stuff, that in some instances they might just run off, but in other instances they might put it back and run away because they know that if they get caught later on, they're not looking at as high of a charge if they didn't actually physically take the goods, because
it's definitely better than nothing.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, the whole reason I even bring it up is I had a police officer tell me one time, and he was kind of a techie kind of a guy. And I was telling him about some of the stuff that we had in our home, and he began to tell me that some thieves have figured out that when they go up to a home and they see that there's a lot of tech, like either like a Ring doorbell or electronic door locks, or particularly electronic door locks apparently are a big signal for these guys, is one of the things they'll do is they'll walk around to the back door and yell into the home, "Hey Alexa, unlock the front door," or "Hey Google, unlock the front door." And it works like half the time apparently, because people don't think that the microphones are that good on those devices, and they just don't think that that's going to be a vulnerable opportunity for a thief to just get into their home without having to use any sort of forced entry.
Right. Exactly. It's like we look at all these devices and they're making our lives easier, and in a lot of instances they do. If you have the electronic door locks and some of the other home automation things like being able to control your garage door from your phone and your thermostat and all that fun stuff. Home automation is great. When you get to the point of tying it into your Alexa or your Google Home, and you make the voice prompt easy enough like that, that default response of unlock the door,
right?
Then you kind of open yourself up.
Yeah. And I imagine that I haven't messed with one of those in a long time, so I imagine they've addressed that through like specific prompts and different. I would hope they've addressed some of that. But I mean, but you're absolutely right. There's default settings on those kinds of things that like most people just know. Now it's
right.
And if you don't think that, I mean, like get a 4-year-old in your house with one of those things and see how quick they figure out all the little tricks to getting voice activation to do stuff in your house.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, and so it's very similar to, years ago, when people started getting, Wi-Fi in their house, and we started setting up our own Wi-Fi networks, and people would, make a super simple kind of easy password so they wouldn't, forget how to log into their home Wi-Fi.
Right.
And you had so many instances of, people hacking into people's home Wi-Fi. When you make it something simple like that, you don't have to go that extra mile to, change from the default, then you really leave yourself open. It's, something as simple as changing it from the default of unlock the door to, open the gates to Funky Town. Now is my, default, my passphrase for Alexa to open my door.
Dang it, Matt, I can't use that now.
Sorry, my bad.
Well, guys, one thing you don't have to worry about is whether or not you know the right plumber to call when you have a plumbing issue in your home. Is that right, Kev?
Absolutely, man. We have got the right guy for you. Paul is the man. Give him a call if you got any plumbing needs, for sure.
That's right. You can reach them at 832-521-3252, and you can email them at Deborah@paultheplumberllc.com, or find them on Facebook or at paultheplumberllc.com. And I'll tell you, Kev, I had a really cool conversation with Deborah earlier this week. She was telling me that because of everything that's going on, they're sort of like me. They've been getting lots and lots of calls, probably because of the homeowner show. But what they've had to do is, because so many people are having issues, they've now, before we talked about how you can go on Facebook and click on book, and you can go on the web page and click on book, and you can get an appointment and all that kind of good stuff. But now if you have a problem, you can actually call them, and they can do a virtual visit into your home and actually diagnose your problem via the phone, via the camera on your phone.
Are you kidding me? That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And so, obviously, if it's pretty complicated and they can't see what's going on, they're going to have to come out and take a look. But she said most instances they can just get on the phone, turn the camera on, get Paul or one of his guys on there to look at what's going on, and they can diagnose it right there and tell them exactly how much it's going to cost and get them set up on the schedule. So
that's awesome, because one of the big things that happens if you've ever had a plumber out to your house is a lot of times they're going to come diagnose things, and if they don't have something on their truck, it's not because they don't try to stock their truck. A lot of times it's just because what you specifically need is a very specific part, or it's just something that's outdated or whatever. They're going to have to go dig for it. But this way, man, if they can diagnose that over the phone, get a brand, get a kind of a layout of what's going on, man, they can make sure they have exactly what they need on that truck before they ever arrive at your home. And that's way more efficient.
Yeah.
That means they potentially save a whole nother trip out to your house.
Which saves you money, saves them time, keeps the prices nice and low, keeps the service up really high. So if you got a problem, give Paul a plumber the call. He can get you taken care of.
That's awesome, man.
Matt, what else we got going on, man? We've dipped our toe in the pond of technology. We've talked about signs. We've talked about and we've hinted at it a few times. But what kind of things does Hawk Security, when they come in, like what is like the, I don't want to say like the base plan for everybody, because you don't want to think like I'm just getting the basic whatever, but like what is the general plan when you're coming into a home, and what sort of equipment are you guys doing that's a little bit different than what I may have seen other places?
Well, it's kind of cool that you mentioned kind of the virtual appointments and virtual diagnosis that Paul the plumber is doing, because with this whole social distancing and everything else, Hawk's moved over to a very similar thing where we're doing a lot of our security consultations over video chat.
Oh, cool.
Zoom or FaceTime or whatever else. Because normally it would consist of me coming to your home and kind of seeing what you have in there and kind of diagnosing your situation. But with social distancing and everything, it's just as easy that I get on a Zoom call with you or FaceTime or Google Duo or whatever your preference is, and you just kind of show me around the house. But to kind of get down to how we do things, one of the great things with Hawk is that we don't believe in the one size fits all model when it comes to your home security or securing your home. We want to come in and just kind of see the layout of your home, find out what your concerns are, find out where your weak points are in the home, and design systems specifically to shut down all of those weak points and vulnerabilities in your home security. So the first thing that I'm going to look for when I come into a home is I want to find out, is there an existing system in the house? Mm-hmm. About 85 to 90% of homes that were built after, I want to say about the late 90s, are getting pre-wired with security systems.
Okay.
So even a lot of older homes, back to late 80s, early 90s, a good percentage of those were even pre-wired with systems. So what that basically means is that, in your front door, for example, if you kind of look along the edge of the door when you have it open, if you see a little kind of plastic-looking circle kind of recessed into the door, then that's one of those recessed contacts that they would use when they pre-wired a home. So that way everything's pre-wired. The contact for the windows, nowadays, it's going to be that little rectangular contact that is pretty easy to see. But back, I say, a number of years ago, when they were still using metal window frames and everything else, they would drill into the window frame and recess that contact into the window frame. So you'd have a little white dot with a little bit, of acrylic or something covering it. You'd be able to see that, there's that contact, recessed into the window like that.
So the first thing it's a good thing to if it's pre-wired, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it definitely makes our life a lot easier. Because we go into a house where there's nothing existing, and it's kind of a question of how many doors and windows do you want to cover contact wise? Because we're going to give you enough contact to cover your exterior doors. The majority of people have between 3 and 4 exterior doors with your garage, your back door, and your front door. But most basic packages that we start from are going to cover covers enough contacts to cover all of the windows in your house. What I usually tell a lot of homeowners is that contact on your window, it's really only going to tell you if somebody's leaving the house to go to a window or somebody's opening that window to get out of the house. It's not really going to tell you if somebody's breaking that window and coming into the house. So that's one of those situations where we prefer to cover a lot more of those windows with something that we call a glass break sensor. A glass break sensor is kind of like a special microphone that will mount on the wall or the ceiling. And it covers about an 18-20 foot radius of sound. So that way, one sensor could cover a whole bank of 5 to 10 windows, as opposed to putting a contact on each and every one of them and sitting there listening for that specific sound of that glass breaking. And unlike a motion detector, where you're familiar with the 2 different modes of arming an alarm system, where one you're arming it in your home, the other one you're arming it you're not home.
Right.
So with that arming in your not home state is usually what turns on your motion detector.
Okay.
Well, the nice thing about the glass break sensors is even if your system is turned off and you're in the home, that sensor is still going to be listening for that sound of breaking glass. So that those things never turn off. So that's kind of one of the perks of using those to kind of cover a lot of windows as opposed to throwing contacts on all of them. Maybe you have teenage children and you want to know if little Jimmy is sneaking out in the middle of the night, in which case, great, put a contact on the window. But if you're more concerned with somebody breaking the window and getting in, then glass break sensor is kind of going to be the way to go. So definitely, if you have a pre-wired house, that kind of gives you extra coverage because they've already gone to the extent of putting contacts on every window and exterior door in the house. So it's less work that we have to do when we come in and kind of take over that system. But then kind of the next thing that I'm going to look for, depending on what's existing in the house, is I'm going to look, kind of get a layout of your house. What are all the concerns in the different areas of your house? Because a lot of people think of, home security as just, somebody breaking in. But these days, with a lot of the home automation things you can do, there's a lot of other situations you can cover. We have this one device, for example, we call it a lamp module, but it's basically, an appliance module. You plug anything into it and you can control the power going to it.
Okay.
So I have a lot of customers where, maybe they have a teenage daughter or somebody, and I don't get the reasoning behind it, but it seems like whenever they're using the hair straightener, they like to sit on the floor and in front of a full-length mirror to straighten their hair. Well, what happens if, they accidentally leave it turned on and plugged in and then, set it down on the carpet and walk away?
Oh, gosh.
You got, potential for a fire hazard there. Well, some of the things you can do with modern security systems now, if you put one of those lamp modules there that the hair straightener is plugged into, is that you can, set it to where it automatically powers off after, say 5 or 10 minutes or whatever kind of time frame. Or if, your daughter's phone leaves, a specific If she leaves the house and kind of breaks that geofence that you have set up around the house, then it automatically turns that device off. So you don't have to worry. The old question, do I leave the stove on?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a pretty cool function. I'd never even thought about something like that.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. A lot of the kind of creative things that you can do with a security system these days that people don't always quite think about. The lamp module, and the curling iron is just kind of one instance of that. There's a lot of other applications. For instance, say your kids were grounded and they're not supposed to be playing video games. You can remotely click that little lamp module and their game system turns off and their TV turns off. And if they think they're going to get smart and get around it, just unplug from the module and plug straight into the wall, then you'll get that notification that whatever was plugged into it is no longer plugged into it. So you can deal with little Jimmy later on however you see fit. But on top of that, we've seen our customers get pretty creative with other things. Everybody thinks of the contacts of, putting the contacts on your door or on your window. But I have a lot of customers that, on the gun safe, they want to know, not necessarily set off the system if it's open, but, they want to get a notification every time that gun safe is opened or closed. Or they'll put it between, the wall and the gun safe. So if, somebody comes in and steals your armory outside of your closet, then on top of the house being broken into, your armory is rolling down the street too. But on top of that, we have some homes and some customers where they have elderly parents in the home, and they want to make sure that they're taking their medication, that they're eating, that they're on a regular schedule. So we can put a door contact on their medicine cabinet, for example, and set it up to where if that cabinet isn't opened at certain times of the day, or over hasn't been opened in 12 or 24 hours, then, it can send a notification to somebody. And that way you can kind of follow up and, kind of find out, hey, Granny, are you taking your medications? Is everything all right? Or we'll put a contact on their silverware drawer. And, older people, especially elderly folks these days, they're very regimented. They have a routine that they follow. They, eat at a certain time of day. They do things at a certain time of day. So if that, door contact isn't broken on their silverware drawer, at least once every 12 hours, then they can send a notification out to somebody to, find out, hey, why is grandma not taking silverware out of the drawer? Why is she not eating? Is she getting a lot of takeout and to go, and that's why she doesn't eat her silverware? Or, is she actually not eating for some reason? So there's a lot of kind of interesting and creative ways that people have been kind of turning to their security systems to not only protect them, but protect, people inside of the house. I was talking to a lady just the other day where their main concern was that they had a son that had special needs, and they were concerned that if he woke up in the middle of the night and they weren't awake, that he might harm himself, or he might, do something in the house while they're asleep. So they wanted to be able to know, if he got up in the middle of the night. So one of the things that we did for them is, instead of a motion detector, high up on the wall, that's going to, send them a notification every time he rolls over in bed. And, we just put that motion detector closer to the floor. So if he gets out of bed and, feet hit the floor, then it's going to trip off that motion detector, not necessarily start, sounding sirens and, blazing in the house, but it'll send them enough notifications. And we have it set up as a medical alert so that our monitoring service will, call them and wake them up and let them know that, hey, your son woke up in the middle of the night. He's currently awake. He's doing something in his room. You might want to go check on him. So that's just kind of a couple of examples of kind of creative things that people have done, with even the more, older parts of a security system, from your door contacts to, motion detectors and everything else. But with a lot of the extra technology, like you were talking about the electronic door locks earlier. Mm-hmm. I don't know about you guys, but I remember when I was a kid, I was what they commonly refer to as a latchkey kid. I'd get home from school before my parents got home from work, so there was that period where I was home by myself. So one of the nice features that people people like about having that electronic door lock in concert with, say, the doorbell camera is they can get a notification. They can set a different code in for their child to use, so that whenever the child's code is put in, not only does it automatically turn off the system, but it sends them a notification letting them know that their child has returned home, and it will send them a clip from the doorbell camera so they can determine, your son came home by himself from school like normal, or he's got his friends with him, or, somebody else came home along with him.
That is true parent winning right there.
Exactly.
So are these all notifications that you're talking about? Does this all exist with like an app that's specific to y'all's system, or is it interacting with different apps that are already available? How does that work? Like I'm thinking about the silverware drawer one. I mean, how would I get that notification?
Mm-hmm. So we do. Our system does come with the alarm.com proprietary app where you can control the entire system over your phone. And it also gives you a lot of customization on what you want to receive notifications for and how you want to receive those notifications. So you'll get a notification, push notification through the app. You can also set it up to get an SMS text alert. You can set it up to where, you get an email alert as well. And then depending on the situation, for instance, with, the customer that wanted to know when their son was awake, you could set certain things up as a medical alert. So it'll actually notify, the monitoring service that there could be a medical emergency in the home and that we need to start contacting, medical assistance at the same time that we're contacting you, because we also have the old, life alert, help, I've fallen and I can't get up.
Yep.
Kind of thing. We have a similar, we call it a wireless panic pendant, which can be worn as a necklace or a bracelet or something else, and it can detect if somebody has fallen over, or they can trigger it if they're having a medical emergency, and that sets it up as an automatic notification, so we know it's not a burglary situation, but somebody needs medical assistance. So everything is kind of through does work through that alarm.com app.
Awesome. And I think you mentioned before the show some of the other things that you guys were adding on to these systems that a lot of people were like things like fire and smoke and
Mm-hmm.
different kinds of layers of protection that you guys can put into that system as well.
Yeah, definitely. Two of the things that we're very proud of with our systems is that fire and that flood protection. When I mentioned flood, we're not thinking Ike or Harvey or anything like that, but it's more referencing to, say the pipe bursts in your laundry room and it's leaking water out all over the place, or your hot water heater bursts and all of a sudden that tank is just emptying water through your attic and into your home. Well, there's always usually kind of a precursor event that can warn you ahead of time before it gets bad enough to where you're having to file a claim with your insurance. With the AC drip pan or the hot water heater, more water is going to be collecting there than there should be before the thing just breaks loose. So we put what we call a water bug sensor in like those drip pans or your laundry room or wherever else that could be vulnerable. And basically, it's got these two little metal prongs on it, and if enough water collects to where it gets up to the level of the device, it completes that circuit between those two prongs, and it sends you a notification to let you know that, hey, there's too much water in some place where there probably shouldn't be. So you can respond to it, at a point where you can throw a towel down and call someone like Paul the plumber to come and fix it before it gets to that catastrophic stage. And that's kind of what we do when it comes to the flood protection. On the fire side, we have this device that we call a firefighter. With a lot of homes, new build homes, ever since about the 80s, if your smoke detector's gone off, you ever notice that kind of all of them in the house start going off instead of just that one?
Right.
Well, with recent fire code that they put in back in the 80s for residential homes, they had to be hardwired and kind of daisy chained together so that if one went off, all of them would go off and that it would have a better chance of waking up everybody in the home. So what we do is we put in Yeah, exactly. So we put this firefighter device in, which similar to the glass break sensor, it's essentially a smart microphone, but its sole job is to listen for your smoke detectors to go off. So if it ever senses that your smoke detectors go off, then it sends an automatic signal to the alarm system, as well as our monitoring service that there's potentially a fire in the home. So, if it's one of those events where, a fire breaks out in the house and it's late at night, everybody's asleep, well, those smoke detectors could be going off all night long, but if it's already generated enough smoke in the house, you could already be incapacitated. You can't get to your phone, you can't call the fire department, you can't get help. But with that device in there, hearing that there's a fire event going on in the house, we can go ahead and respond and start sending the fire department out to your house to find out what's going on in the event that you can't respond and you can't call them yourself.
Oh, that's great, man. Those are some really cool features, and I think that's, I think that there's some certain things that we talked about early on in the show that you could really do to help your home. But then there are some of these other things that we're talking. Unless you pay for some sort of a security system and have it monitored, then you're still going to be missing out on quite a bit of opportunity to protect yourself. So it's pretty great to have some of these options available.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, also on talking about the fire and the fire protection, one thing that a lot of people overlook is the type of smoke detector that they even have in the house. The majority of smoke detectors that are put into new built homes and really most homes built since the 80s and 90s are these ionization smoke detectors, which ionization smoke detectors are great. But the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that they're specifically designed to react to fast rising flames. So, if something, catches fire in your house and there's, fast rising heat, then those things are going to start going off and, let you know that there's a fire in the house. But in the instance to where, if there's more of a slow smoldering fire, like your couch catches fire or something else, something that's going to be putting a lot of noxious fumes into the air before those, flames catch up, then that ionization detector is not going to detect that. So one of the other things that we provide for homeowners, and homeowners can even get for themselves to help protect against, another source of fire in the house, is what we refer to as a photoelectric smoke detector. Basically, the difference between the two is the ionization is looking for that fast rising flame, whereas your photoelectric is looking for more of those smoldering fires that are putting off those noxious fumes before the flames follow suit. So in that instance, you got a lot of CO rising in the house. You got a lot of noxious fumes and everything else. That's the kind of stuff that could incapacitate you before those flames follow. So if you have some of those photoelectric sensors, kind of spaced out in the house to kind of add on to the existing ionization ones that you already have in your home, then you can kind of add in that extra protection. And then that's not necessarily something that you can only get with our system. I mean, you can go to Home Depot and get a photoelectric smoke detector. But having that, it gives you that extra bit of coverage from, a different type of fire than just, the fast rising flame that everybody thinks about when they think about a home fire.
Okay, cool.
Go ahead, Kev.
One of the things that I'm curious about whenever it comes to home security systems is like, there's a lot more DIY stuff out there, like Simply Safe, for example, where you buy a fairly inexpensive system that's completely wireless and you just kind of, so to speak, slap it up on your house. What are the pros or cons? I realize that you being in the home security business, like you're wanting the business yourself, but I mean, is something like that? I mean, because it's a very popular option these days. Is something like that beneficial? Is it counterintuitive? Is it really good, really bad? Like, because those security systems are quite a bit less expensive because they're wireless and they're a whole lot easier to install. You can do it yourself versus having a professional come out and actually, install it. And that's a big part of the cost with some of those systems as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, obviously, best case scenario, I'd want somebody to sign up with Hawk, but at the end of the day, I'm more concerned with people being safe and your family being safe. So if you want to go with one of those alternative solutions, I mean, as long as somebody has some type of security system in the home, I'm happy at the end of the day. If they go with me, all the better. But with a lot of those systems, there's definitely your pros and your cons when it comes to some of those. The reason that we're not always, excited about options such as Simply Safe, for example, is that some of those systems are the monitoring that comes along with it, while it may be cheap, only runs off of your home Wi-Fi. So if someone were to cut your internet cable outside the house, or something happens, and I mean, how often do you have a Wi-Fi outage at the house because your internet provider just something happens and the internet goes down? Well, if that happens, all of a sudden nobody's watching your system. So that can definitely be kind of a big con when using a system such as that. Most of your standard security systems, when they're tied into some kind of monitoring, the best way that you want to make sure that it's being monitored is over cell signal, and make sure that's not over Wi-Fi. Because especially with some of these Wi-Fi systems like your Simply Safe and others, they work off of a Wi-Fi hub that they put in your house that kind of controls the system. So that kind of goes back into the burglars, whether they're sophisticated or whether they're an amateur. Because if they're more of a sophisticated burglar and they see that Simply Safe sign in your yard, they know that if they can find that hub somewhere in the house and just kind of smash it on the ground, there's no alert signal that's going out to the monitoring service, and they're never going to know that they're in the home. And so you're pretty much out of luck at that point. Whereas something like what we put in and what other, a little higher priced security companies put in, our key panels are what we call tamper proof. They come with a crash and smash feature, where if they break into the home and they pull it off the wall and throw it on the ground, then we're still going to be able to respond and send somebody out, because we never got that distress, that disarm signal to the panel. But then the other side of it is, specifically with our panels, it's got a little speaker on there. We like to refer to it as OnStar for your house, basically, where we can speak to you through the panel. And so we know that if we can't reach you through the panel and we didn't get a disarm signal, then obviously the panel's been pulled off the wall and thrown on the ground. So we need to go ahead and send somebody out. So with some of those DIY systems, you don't kind of get some of those extra features, such as your smash and crash or your cellular versus Wi-Fi. So it's really important to kind of weigh the pros and cons with whatever system that you're going to go with. Like I said, as long as you have a system in the house and you got that sign out front, I'm hunky-dory and A-okay. I'm glad you're protected. But then at the end of the day, people also have to realize that you're going to get what you pay for. Yeah. If you get that roofer that is going to replace your roof, and they do it for a fraction of what the insurance is going to pay, then you got to wonder what kind of corners they're going to cut, right, to get that roof put on there. Maybe they're using substandard materials, or they're cutting some other corners. Well, it's kind of the same thing when it comes to your home security. If you're just looking for the cheapest option out there, then you got to kind of ask yourself, what are you sacrificing in order to save a couple of bucks? We always tell people, we're not the cheapest, we're not the most expensive, but we're going to give you the most value for what you are paying us.
So with a smash and whatever, I forget how you phrased it. Yeah, with that panel, and like this is just a weird thought that came into my head. Is like, say that happens to me, like someone breaks into my home, they find that panel, they smash it. Am I then on the hook to get that thing replaced?
Nope.
Nope.
Not at all. Nope.
So anything that a thief might.
I can't speak for other companies, but I know for us, if you are broken into and they were to smash that panel, then we'd come out and replace that panel for you, no extra charge.
Cool. Because I'm probably already having to deal with whatever else they already took.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so that one of the things we try to do on this show is we try to equip our listeners with some options and ideas out there. Like, when I'm looking for a home security company, like, what are some things that I can look for to know that this company's either not just legitimate or not legitimate? but what makes some companies better than others? Because there's all kinds of companies out there, and there's companies that guys are running out of the back of their truck, and there's some that are massive storefronts, and even stuff that's run out of box stores, right? So like, what are the types of things that we can tell our listeners? You need to look for this or this in order to know that the company that you're having to come out and install the product with is also going to have my back, and the monitoring system isn't just some third party monitoring system, like they're the real deal type of thing. What can we look for?
Well, really, when you're going to come down to choosing a good security company, some of the factors are really going to be the same as a lot of other companies that you would look at. You want to make sure that they have a good BBB rating. You want to check their reviews. You want to check their Google reviews, their Facebook reviews. Make sure that they have a pretty good reputation. But on top of that, you want to make sure that they're licensed in the state that you're in, because every legitimate company worth their salt has to be licensed with the state. But kind of what you were talking about with a lot of other companies and your mom and pop shops and everything else, that's kind of that conversation between are you dealing with the actual security company, or are you dealing with what we refer to as a dealer? Because there's a lot of these companies out there that they're simply a dealer for, say, ADT, or they're a dealer for Brinks. In which case they're almost like their own little franchise, like you think of like a McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or whatever else, where they just kind of bought the right to use that name. And then they come out and they sell you the system. And then what happens after that is once they've gotten, enough contracts in place, they sell those contracts over to the corporate, bigger company that they're a dealer for. So ADT, for example, once they get enough contracts, then they'll sell it off, to ADT corporate, and they take everything over. The downside to dealing with some of those, if you're dealing with a dealer, is a lot of those higher up corporate companies, your ADT, your Brinks, and others, they have a certain level of criteria on those contracts that they're going to buy off of those dealers. So your credit rating, your down payment, whatever else the factors are. So if you're dealing with one of those companies, then you run the risk that if your contract doesn't meet that criteria of that higher corporate company, they might not buy the contract off of that dealer. And so you're left with, Bob in his office somewhere is running your monitoring, whereas you thought ADT was going to be running your monitoring. So that's kind of that dealer, that difference between, the dealer or the actual security company. When you're dealing with,
So basically what you're saying is that big corporation has no obligation to actually take over those contracts.
Right. Exactly. And it's up to them whether they're going to accept that contract and take over the monitoring or just completely deny it. It's kind of up to them.
Jeez. How would you even know?
Yeah.
I mean, unless something happened.
That's kind of the scary thing is you won't know. You get into a situation where, you get a mortgage on your house from a new builder, and you get that mortgage, and then they transfer the mortgage to somebody else. You get notified that mortgage gets transferred to a different lender. That's who you're going to be sending your payment to. But with a situation between a dealer and then their higher corporate, if they don't accept that contract, you never know.
Yeah.
It's not like they're going to notify you that, hey, ADT didn't buy my contract for you off of me, so I'm going to be doing your monitoring. You just simply don't know.
Yeah, that's probably a good example because our mortgage has been sold several times and no one ever asked me.
Yep.
Well,
nope.
But at least you get notified, right?
Eventually, when they start wanting their money.
Exactly.
Well, that's helpful because that's it's one of those deals where it's like, do I know that I'm getting what I pay for? And I think we preach this over and over and over, which is know what you're buying. Make sure that before you hire somebody that you've fully vetted them, that you've asked for references, that you've looked into what you're doing. I mean, unless you're in some sort of state of emergency, you've got to kind of get the best, the quickest person out there as possible. Make sure that you know what you're doing and you're getting the service that you're actually paying for, because buying a security system, it's not a small investment.
No.
It's a large investment, and it's something that and it's one of those deals where it's like, man, like, I hear your kids there in the background. Craig and I both have kids as well. Like, I mean, and if you're traveling or something, goodness gracious, there's not really a price you can put on keeping other unwanted individuals out of your home.
Right. Exactly. And that's where it kind of all comes back to, you get what you pay for at the end of the day. If you're just looking for the cheapest option out there, then you're getting the cheapest protection. But if you're willing to, spend a little bit more money for, to protect the people that are most important to you. Because I always tell people, I don't care if somebody breaks in and steals all your stuff. I want to make sure that your family's safe, that if something happens and your wife's home, your kids are home, I want to make sure that they don't get harmed, because, we can replace stuff. I can't replace your family. Yeah. So I want to make sure that your family remains safe. And so that's where we kind of go that extra mile with everything that we do to make sure that, our little tagline, and what we always tell people is we keep bad things from happening to good people. Mm. We're more concerned about the people than the stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, with that in mind, I think I have the perfect question for that. I'm curious as to what is the most over the top security system you've ever seen or put in. So knowing that full well that, like, there's no price tag for people or anything like that, but like I can imagine that you've probably seen something that was just like, all right, that may have been a little much.
I can't really say that anything is a little much. Exactly, because if people want to go the farthest lengths and say put 12 hardwired CCTV cameras around their house, and
I guess is that when people are getting really serious? Is like CCTVs systems?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, at that point, you're going for the same security that a commercial business would have. Mm-hmm. If you go with the hardwired CCTVs and the DVR and everything else. But we have seen some kind of over the top systems where we go into the house and we do the consultation, and we sit down and ask the homeowner what are they concerned with and what are their big concerns, and we get blindsided with something that we just weren't expecting whatsoever. We've got one customer that they wanted extra contacts on a certain room in the house. They wanted the hardwire CCTVs. I mean, they easily spent a couple $1,000 on the system itself. But when we kind of digged a little bit deeper, we found out that this person makes a lot of their income because they're a Twitch streamer. They stream video games, and they have a whole bank of servers in their closet, and they have a lot of expensive equipment. So if anything were to happen in that one specific room in the house, that's their livelihood. So he kind of went a little over the top with all the extra equipment and all the extra precautions, because he really wanted to protect that. We had another customer that they bought a decent sized property, and with the property came a full service like mechanic garage. Like, he didn't have just your normal 2-car garage. He had it was more of a 4 to 8 car garage, and it was fully kitted out with all of the hydraulic equipment and everything else that you would see down at your local Midas. And so for him, he wanted those extra, hardwired CCTV cameras all around his property, because that was part of his livelihood. Him and his brother, ran their mechanic shop business out of this garage that was on his property that he bought. So, that was more than, the normal person would get. But in those instances, they were willing to pay, a little bit more to protect their livelihoods and what they had there on the property.
Have you ever dealt with anybody with a panic room?
I don't think I've personally seen a panic room yet. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they're out there.
They're out
somewhere.
There.
Oh yeah.
I have some clients with some.
Oh really?
Oh yeah.
that would be interesting to see. It really would. I mean, does it have like the blast shield door that drops down or like a safe level door? Or?
So most of the ones that I've encountered are underground.
Okay.
So I mean, like, so at that point, blast shield may or may not be necessary. I mean, like the door obviously is, has that sort of, but like, yeah, most of them are the ones I've seen, most of them are underground.
Yeah, that would definitely make sense. And that's kind of one of those when we kind of go back to hardening your home and having those extra layers of security.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you really want to go to that extra level and have that, underground panic room, then that's kind of the ultimate, I guess, when it comes to your home security.
Yeah.
Because once you get in there, there's no getting in there to you.
Yeah. No,
but they can definitely take all the stuff they want, but they're not going to get to you.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I tell a lot of people, because we all of our systems come with the two little key fob remotes that can you put it on your key, turn the system on and off. Well, a lot of people think I'm going to stick this on my keychain, but I've got to educate a lot of homeowners and let them know. Sure, we're giving you two of these things. If you want, the person that's constantly going to work and leaving the house to have one on their keychain, that's great. But I want you to put the other one in, say, your master bedroom closet or wherever that place is in the house that almost serves as that panic room.
Mm-hmm.
That, it's your safe place because you can hold down the top two buttons on our remote and it sets off a panic signal. So I always tell them, put that other key fob in, say, your closet, or if something happens in your home, where are you going to retreat to?
Yeah.
That way you don't have to worry about where are my keys, where's my phone. You've already got that remote there in that safe room where you can go ahead and send that panic signal so we can get help coming out your way.
Yeah, it's probably smart because most people don't keep their keys accessible by like their bedside or something like that. So they're going to have to go through the house in order to get that.
So if it's already kind of there ahead of time, then you're kind of protecting yourself a little more.
So is the key fob, and I think I've seen these before, where like you can arm and disarm the alarm and do different functions like that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty basic to where you can arm it. You can arm it and either stay or away more or disarm it. But the ones that we usually give our customers, if you hold down the top two buttons on the little key fob, it sends a panic signal. So it kind of gives you that extra little protection if something is going wrong. You have that handy and available.
Well, yeah, Matt, is there anything we haven't covered yet that you wanted to make sure we got into tonight?
I think we've covered about the good majority of it. We touched on your fire protection and your flood protection and kind of what some of the things are that people can kind of do to harden themselves and make themselves a less desirable target. So I think we've pretty much covered the topic pretty well, Craig.
Nice.
I do have one other question that I want to hit,
okay.
And we don't have to spend a long time on this, but I'll just tell you, like, one of the reasons that we purchased in the neighborhood that we purchased in, beyond the fact that we just really liked the neighborhood in general, is there's it's a guarded, gated community that's got a guard shack that you have to go through in order to get into our community. It's not even just an electric gate that opens up. If you push in a code, there's no code. You have to go through a guard shack in order to get through here. And they've got people on patrol. Well, it's not a huge neighborhood, but it's not the smallest neighborhood by any stretch of the imagination. They got a couple of patrol people. The security guards are armed. All those types of things. Like, at what point should I or anybody that lives in a neighborhood similar to mine put some stock in that, as far as just keeping you safe, knowing that people can still get in if they're not supposed to be there. There's other ways to get in, and even they may even look like they have a legitimate reason to get in. They can still get in. But how much stock should I put in something like that?
There's definitely a certain amount of stock that I'd say you can put into it, because when it comes to hardening your property, the factors of the neighborhood definitely play into it. I always kind of harken it back to you want layers like an onion, or like Shrek talks about that. Ogres, their feelings are like an onion; they're made of layers.
We finally got a good Shrek reference.
There you go. I want to make sure I work that in.
Okay, good.
But yeah, so the security around your neighborhood itself, before you get to your actual property, it's those extra layers. So having a gate is great, but I can still follow somebody in through the gate. Having that guard shack is great, but I can pretend that I'm going to service somebody's house in the neighborhood, and I can still get past that guard shack. If you're in one of these neighborhoods that's off of Lake Conroe, for example, then having all of that stuff is awesome. But if I've got a rowboat, I can come up off the shore and I can get in the neighborhood and I can go wherever I want. So a lot of those things are great extra factors. But we did a homeowners event at one of these gated communities off of the lake. I won't mention which one it was, but a lot of the people were passing by our table and kept commenting to us, "Oh, we live in a gated community. We don't need security." So we were like, "Okay, we brought up our spot crime app on our iPad, and we showed them that you've got a gated community with a guard shack and everything else, but there's still been 3 burglaries here in the neighborhood in the last 6 months. There's been 2 shootings. There's been a number of thefts. So while all those things are great, you definitely don't want to get that false sense of security that just because your neighborhood has that nothing can happen to you."
Yeah, so kind of what I'm hearing for you, any deterrent is that it's a deterrent, and your run-of-the-mill burglar may pull up to my neighborhood and go, "Nah, not worth it." But the maybe some more sophisticated, even whoever, it's a deterrent is just that, it's a deterrent. So. Cool.
Right. Well, listen, and the more deterrence you have set up, the better. But at the end of the day, if there's, I always tell people, if you don't have a system that's being monitored, then in the event that somebody is determined enough to get past all those deterrents, then if you don't have somebody that can call for that backup, then you're still kind of leaving yourself vulnerable at the end of the day.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we would not be doing our job if we ended this show without doing the Final Four.
The Final Four.
So, Final Four questions we ask all of our guests on the show. So
it's the most feared segment on the show.
Shoot,
and rightly so. I mean, these are doozies.
Soul crushing questions.
That's right.
Bring it on.
All right. So 4 questions. The first one's this. What's the must-have tool you won't leave your house without?
Must-use tool. I'd say it would probably be my Leatherman.
Nice.
My multifunction tool. That has saved my butt more times than I can imagine.
Pick a lock with that thing.
Yep.
All right. Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely a good one. Those things are, almost indestructible. We had So I was doing an event and I had a bunch of people with me. We had a teenage girl. We were actually in New York City, and we were going to the Statue of Liberty, and we walked through security, and she had like a pocket Leatherman, like a legit one of the really nice ones. And it was different than some. It had the scissors in it instead of the
pliers.
The pliers. And so, anyway, they confiscated it, and she never saw it again. So, I know.
I had a similar situation where I was flying out for some military stuff, and I forgot that I had my Leatherman and it was a combination like corkscrew bottle opener in my backpack. And so they said, your 2 options are you can either throw it in the trash or go through security, or if your bag hasn't made it back to through security yet, you can run back and put it in your bag. Luckily, I was carrying what they considered an oversized bag. So they hadn't took it yet. So I'm like, you can take the corkscrew, but I'm putting my Leatherman out of my bag.
That's right.
That's a nice H&K Leatherman. I mean, I'm not giving that up.
Nope.
That's a nice
not
one.
At all. Awesome. All right. Second question. What's a job you've walked away from? Okay, so we always have to caveat this a little bit. You can use a career if you want to, but also you may have a job that you've had at your house, a project, for example, you were working on, kind of got fed up with it, and you're like, you know what, I'm walking away. I got to call Paul the plumber or whoever it is, and get someone else, a professional, to get in here and take care of it. So, what's a job you've walked away from?
So it's kind of funny that you mentioned Paul the plumber, because it was actually a plumbing incident. When my kids were younger, and they went through that phase of we want to put fun stuff down the toilet. I've actually removed my toilets a couple of times, and had to replace the ring and fish whatever it was that they put down in there. But we had one instance where some water started coming up from one of the toilets, and I took it off, tried to check it out, but nothing really seemed to be fixing the problem. So we wound up having to call the plumber out to determine that I guess a branch or something had worked its way into the drainage pipe under our house that feeds out of the house. And it had gotten clogged with some like toilet paper or something that was catching around that branch. And they were able to kind of, snake it out and everything else. But originally I was just like, great, the kids put something else down the toilet.
They immediately got the blame.
Yep.
Wow. Nice. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Third question. How do you wind down at the end of a long day?
Winding down at the end of a long day. Really, I kind of depend on the kids for that. They're kind of crazy throughout the day, with everything that they're doing, and they seem like little Energizer bunnies. And you can still hear them here in the background. At, what is it, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and they're still going strong. But when I come home at the end of the day, and I come through that door, and they run up screaming "Daddy," and give me a hug, and they just want to sit in my chair with me and watch their videos on their tablet or play their game. That's what kind of helps me kind of wind down and kind of push everything else from the day kind of to the back of my mind, all the stress that I was dealing with and all the difficult things I was dealing with, and I can just forget all about that for the rest of the night and just kind of focus on playing with them and what's kind of making them happy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we say it often. We're big advocates of family, so
Definitely.
That's awesome. Very good. All right, fourth question. What's one of the best pieces of wisdom or advice you've ever received?
Probably the best piece of wisdom I have received probably came through reading The Tao of Pooh. In which, I don't know if y'all are familiar with that book or not, but I kind of explain the tenets of Taoism through Winnie the Pooh, the show of Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, okay.
And so that kind of helped me put a lot of things into perspective, and the age-old adage of don't sweat the small stuff. That really a lot of stuff used to the little things got me wound up in the past, but kind of after reading through that and learning of the wisdom of Pooh Bear and the Thousand Acre Woods, kind of learned how to just kind of shrug some things off. That if something's outside of your control, especially with the situation that we're dealing with now, sometimes you just gotta let things kind of slide off your shoulder and deal with what you can make an impact on.
That's cool, man.
That is for sure.
I actually kind of want to check that book out. That actually sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, is it like a long read, or is it like kind of like condensed, like bits of wisdom?
It's pretty. Yeah, it's a pretty short. You can get it in paperback. It's maybe 100, 200 pages.
Okay.
It's not really a long read. I probably first time I read it, I probably got through it in an afternoon. And it's a pretty easy read because it explains everything through the stories of Winnie the Pooh and the Thousand Acre Woods.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, it's awesome.
Well, and so we have the secret fifth question at the end of the final four. That yeah. So gird your loins. How do people find you if they want to get a hold of you?
So if they want to get a hold of me, they can check out my Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Matt Houston Hawk. Or they can reach out to me directly. Can I get my cell phone? Can I get my number out?
It's your number.
All right. Well, if anybody wants to get a hold of me, to talk about their home security needs and do a virtual consultation or anything else to kind of determine what we can do to help harden them and make them a little bit safer, they can reach out to me at 281-210-6804. So either by phone or my Facebook page or Facebook Messenger. Those are the primary ways that they can find me, or they can look up more about our company at hawksecurity.com.
Awesome. And they can find you through all those different avenues, correct?
Well, if they go to hawksecurity.com, it's the main company website.
Okay.
That'll tell them everything about the company. But if they want to get in contact with me directly, anywhere here in the Houston area, personally, I service the greater Houston area. They'd have to either go to my Facebook page or reach out by text or give me a call.
Okay, awesome. We'll link all that up.
If they're anywhere else in Texas, they can go to the company website, and we'll get the closest Hawk representative out there to take care of them.
Okay. And are you guys only in Texas, or are you guys in other states as well?
So we mainly cover Texas. We're a Texas-based company, and we only cover Texas, but we also fall under the myalarmcenter.com family, which is a large conglomeration of security companies that fall under kind of that umbrella. So we have, there's another company called, I want to say AMSA, that covers Georgia.
Okay.
We have another company, the corporate headquarters for myalarm.com is up in Philadelphia. So they have a company up there. So we're primarily Texas, but there are a number of other companies under that myalarm.com umbrella that cover other areas of the country.
Gotcha. We'll take all your contact info and put that up in the show notes.
Yeah. So is the primary company for Hawk in Fort Worth?
Yes.
Okay.
That's where our corporate office is located, up in the DFW area.
Okay.
And we work out of the Houston branch down here. We also have branches out in San Antonio and Tyler, Texas, as well as DFW. But when I say the greater Houston area, we'll pretty much service anywhere within 150 miles of our Houston office. So we cover all the way out to Navasota, Huntsville, Galveston, Katy, you name it.
Yeah. People don't realize how big of a sprawl Houston is.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
Not small.
Oh.
That's right. Well, cool.
Well, what else we got, Kev?
And I can't think of anything. What I do know is that we appreciate you tuning into our show tonight. And thanks for giving us a like on Facebook and following us. And you can find us on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook, all of those sorts of things. That we, by the way, I mean, like, if you still use Twitter, I mean, you can send us a message. We may never see it.
But let's just be real. If you're on Twitter, the only reason you're there is to see the crazy things that Trump is tweeting.
That's right.
That's it.
That's right.
That's the only reason you're there.
That's right.
That's right. Nobody else is there for any other reason.
Which is a legitimate reson.
It's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm okay with it.
Perfectly
I'm just
legit.
we just all need to be honest with ourselves.
That's right. So, we're actually doing a little bit of a promotion here with Meals on Wheels. Is that right, Craig? Yeah.
So, really cool thing that Podchaser is doing right now. They're doing through April 15th. If you go on Podchaser and look up our podcast, which you can now listen to on Podchaser, and leave a review, they will donate 25 cents to Meals on Wheels. And if we respond to that review, they'll double that donation. So if you leave a review, we promise to respond to it. So your review will actually be getting a 50-cent donation to Meals on Wheels through April 15th. It's just a way that they're trying to help get meals safely to seniors during this crisis and pandemic without spreading the COVID-19 virus. So it's a really, really cool deal.
Awesome.
So,
yeah, and that's a really big deal. Like, and I'll just mention this really quick. Like, I don't think we sometimes realize how these Meals on Wheels get delivered sometimes. Like, for example, my grandma is in her upper 80s, and she has a Meals on Wheels route on Thursdays.
Right.
And which is awesome. I mean, I just really love that about her. But I called her 2 weeks ago, and I said, Mama, you got to call your person and tell them you can't do this right now. Like, you just need to give up your route right now, because I mean, the risk is too great for someone of your age, and there's even logistical things with that, right? Like how people are getting their meals, making sure that there's enough donations for some of these senior adults to get the things that they need. So this is a really great opportunity for you, and y'all would really be helping a lot of really great people. 25 cents doesn't seem like a lot. 50 cents seems like a whole lot more. Still doesn't seem like a lot, but you'd be amazed at how far 50 cents can go to feed one person.
Yeah, and this isn't just for us. I mean, we don't care. Go on there and review as many podcasts as you want. I mean, everyone you review is going to get them 25 cents right now through April 15th. That's right. So really cool deal.
Yeah, not about us at all. So we just want to make sure people are aware of that. But yeah, thanks for listening to us, for downloading. Tell your friends about us. We would love the review, but not just for Meals on Wheels. We would love to have some interaction with you guys. You can email us at info@homeownershow.com. If you have any questions, we will get back to you as quickly as possible. Thanks for downloading. And until next time, we'll see you later.
See ya.